take this opportunity to welcome our resource person, management and my dear friends who have taken a step forward to join this Confluence. Every positive thought in a silent prayer will change your life. With this strong belief, I request everyone to stand up for a silent prayer. Thank you, everyone. Small cheers and great welcome makes a merry feast. And now, I would like to call upon Ms. Jyoti to welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon to one and all gathered here. I welcome you all to this academic confluence. It's an honor to address our distinguished guest on this auspicious occasion. I extend my warm greetings to our resource person, Dr. T. Senthil Kumar, Associate Professor and Lead of Sustainability and Reporting Cluster, School of Accounting and Finance, Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, Malaysia. I also render a warm welcome to our esteemed Director, Dr. A.G.V. Narayanan, our beloved faculties and my dear friends. We are grateful to Dr. T. Senthil Kumar for accepting our invitation. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jyoti. Now I request Ms. Ridhini to deliver the guest introduction.
Good afternoon to one and all gathered here. It's my immense pleasure to introduce our resource person, Dr. T. Senthil Kumar, Associate Professor and Lead of Sustainability and Reporting Cluster. He is a finance professional with extensive experience in teaching postgraduate and undergraduate students, possessing expertise in program management, supervision, research, publication, mentoring and student development. He is currently serving as an Associate Professor and Lead of Sustainability and Reporting Cluster at the School of Accounting and Finance, Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, Malaysia. Also holding the position of Adjunct Professor at Johnson School of Business. Functioning as an editorial board member of Frontier in Environmental Economics, a pre-renowned Journal of Management, Thoughts and Practice, and Journal of Applied Management Research. Previously, he held positions such as the Head of Postgraduate Program, the Head of Finance and Accounting Research Cluster, Technical Board Member of the Journal of Governance and Integrity, and member of various new program development committees. He led research grants funded by the Ministry of Higher Education, Malaysia. Noteworthy achievements of him including winning a silver medal in the FIMEX 2023 Innovation Competition, the Best Paper Award in ICIE 2022 International Conference, receiving a UMP Excellent Employee Award in 2021, securing a silver medal in ITEX 2021 International Exhibition, earning the gold medal in UMP Citrix 2021 Exhibition, and attaining the Best Paper Award in NCON PGR 2020 National Conference, Malaysia. Additional honors include the UMP Excellent Employee Award in 2020, UMP Excellent Service Award in 2019, UMP Excellent Employee Award 2018, and the UMP MBA Most Dedicated Lecturer Award in 2016. We are happy to have such a wonderful person amongst us. Once again, welcome you, sir.
Hi, good evening all of you. Thank you for the nice introduction and thank you to Sunil for inviting me formally and we have been working together for some time in Asia, probably it's been not a new place. I've been here for some time. I'm not sure if I think there are other faculties as well. I'm not sure from Malaysia. So the basic idea is to get you some introduction into the digital banking and financial inclusion, maybe some ideas in terms of what is the status quo, what are the policy initiatives, and does it lead to inclusion or does it lead to digital divide? So this will be the theme for the discussion today, but don't get scared looking at the scheme and the way I'm getting this introduced to. Anytime you feel like you can stop me for questions, I think more interesting if we have questions and answers rather than me trying to come out with the slides and go on with my onslaught, especially after the whole day you have been spending. The last session is always difficult. Anyway, So, as I mentioned, we look at this as the scheme. So, some basic questions: what do we mean by digital banking? I think as a part of Indian subcontinent, all of us know what is digital banking. All your QR payments and all this mobile, online, all these are called as digital banking. So, no qualms about that. But what do we mean by the term financial inclusion? Does it mean that we are going to provide banking facility to everyone? Or does it mean that we are going to provide financial services to everyone? And does it mean that is it going to be expensive? So any ideas, any thoughts, what do we mean by financial inclusion? If I'm going to provide, let's say, financial services to everyone, do we call that as financial inclusion? That everyone, all the Indians, they have the banking facility, do we call that as financial inclusion, or do you think there's something else beyond the definition? Of course, it goes accessible and affordable. So what do we mean by accessible? What do we do with countries like Indonesia, which have thousands of islands, which probably no one has ventured, which does not have network? Forget about mobile phones, forget about network. So what do we mean by financial inclusion in this context? In India, I think we take things for granted. We travel in the highway. Wherever you want to connect, I think it's easy to connect. Maybe ma'am knows. In Malaysia, we do say this is 5G compatible and you can get network connections, all this fine. Anyone travel to Malaysia? Anyone has been to Malaysia before? Have you tried the roaming package? Most of the time it wouldn't work. Unless maybe you take Airtel or something, it wouldn't work. And the same goes with the network, like you travel from one place to another place. It's not like what you see in India. Sometimes you don't get the connection, you don't get the phone call, we get angry. But compared to this, what you find in the case of Singapore is a totally different story. And now you may be thinking, why am I comparing Singapore, which is like a dot in the map, which is one of the advanced nations, one of the wealthiest and the richest nations. Why do we even talk about fintech in this case? So the idea behind fintech, what do we do in the case of Singapore, especially in the case of regulations, in the case of leading the way forward, as compared to what do we do in the case of Malaysia, what do we do in the case of Indonesia, countries like Myanmar? Are they even on the map of fintech? So these are the things which we'll probably have a look at. And to get back to my question, what do we mean by financial inclusion? What do you think? Is it all accessible, affordable financial products? Is that what we mean by financial inclusion, or is there more to that? Nobody expected a question. I think all of you are getting ready to sleep when I started the lecture. Probably nobody expected a question. Okay, I'm used to Coimbatore lecture style, so I'm okay. I can digest this. I can take this. It's almost the same thing which we see in Malaysia as well. They ask like 100 questions, and there's like one person who wants to answer. That's the same thing which we see in Malaysia as well. So. The basic idea behind financial inclusion is we want to bank. So this leads us to the question, what do we mean by banking? Channelizing the money. If you look at the definition for banking, what do the banks do? Channelize the money, channelize the savings and bring it from the people who have access to the people who need it. Maybe companies or maybe the individuals, whoever needs it, we try to channelize and bring it forward. But this is a bit centralized. The Reserve Bank or the central bank in the particular country, they are the ones who take care of the whole thing. And there are other banks, there are other financial institutions which do this. And how does fintech change or question this model? Anyone trading with digital assets, cryptos? Nobody. You don't want to tell your parents, right? think some of you are probably trading with the crypto assets. No one? I think you all are very, very disciplined, very conservative, like follow all the rules in India. Of course, it's the same thing in Malaysia. You know, it's not really legal to trade with the digital assets, but still there are students who do trading in the digital assets. So the other question is, probably you remember what happened in 2008. That was the time when the so-called explosion of fintech started. We lost trust in the established institutions, which led to the global financial meltdown. And that is when the fintech, the democratization idea, why should one body, one government should control the whole thing, that was questioned by many of us. So that is when we started with the crypto assets and the cryptocurrencies. And from there, the whole idea of fintech has evolved into many, many branches. So like insurance. How do you take insurance today? Do you visit the branch? No. How do you book the tickets? Do you visit the travel agencies? How do you pay? Do you carry a credit card? Phone. You have the phone, end of story. The whole bank, the whole world is around your phone. And that is what we mean by the answer to the questions which I was asking. Everyone has a phone. Why should the person come to the bank? Why not the bank go to the person? Why not the technological companies, telecom companies? Why don't we make the devices that we have as a part of the inclusion? So all these are the things which ultimately trying to channelize, bring the money to people who do not have. And the last one, what about people who do not know how to use a phone? Even my parents, they are dedicated, they are old, they are retired. Actually, my father was a banker, my mother was a lecturer. You know what they all do with the phones? Every time I come back, I have to reset the phone. There are so many unwanted junk apps on the whole phone which slows down the whole phone. Probably compromised, I don't know. Somebody has to check, is it compromised? So that is a kind of risk in the case of the last one, digitalization. Maybe tell them that you do not really have to go to the branch. Maybe I know the branch manager. This human touch, I know this person. Is it legit? Is it not legit? Probably this human touch is missing. Maybe to share a personal experience, last 2 days what I've been undergoing. I use a recording, right? So I shouldn't mention the name. So I use a private bank credit card. It worked fine until I reached here. But the moment I reached, it's an Indian bank. The moment I reached here, it's not been working. So my question is, what fintech? What fintech are we talking about? If the credit card cannot work, and I call back the customer care, they assure that you try in some other outlet, it should work. It didn't work. So what do we mean by fintech? Is it inclusion? I'm a bank person, I know what I'm doing, or at least I think I know what I'm doing. And if the credit card cannot work, a very simple device, if it cannot work, what kind of financial inclusion, what kind of fintech are we talking about? What about people who do not know how to use the phone? So the other question what we are trying to ask is the unequal access. Imagine a person who is in a village. Imagine somebody who doesn't know how to use a smartphone. So these are the challenges which might come up in the whole picture. So one thing has been the rapid evolution in terms of you don't even remember when we stopped visiting the branch. I don't remember. Suddenly we started online. Suddenly the whole thing is mobile. No need to visit anyone. If something goes wrong, you have to call the customer care, wait endlessly for the whole thing. So this rapid evolution has been one thing, but there have been other positives as well. So what do we mean by blockchain? Distributed ledger, I think we all know the definition, right? But what does it mean? Why do we call this as the block and why do we call this as the chain? I transfer money to, I think it should be the other way around. Sunil sir has a lot of money. So Sunil sir transfers money to me. And then I transfer it to my family. Can we track the whole thing? If it is physical money, is it possible to track? If it is digital, it is traceable. But the problem is, are we not subjecting ourselves to a wider loss of autonomy? Government knowing everything, what am I doing? I spend this, I buy this. Government knows everything. Why should we do this? I'm parallelly trying to look at the positives and negatives of the fintech. The negative of the fintech, the negative of the whole digitalization is we are losing privacy. We are losing privacy. Why should the government know how much money I have? None of the government's business, right? But then what about the other questions like anti-money laundering? I sell an asset, I buy an asset, we pay the tax. Tax is the one which keeps the engine running, the government's engine running. So that is one excuse which most of the governments have for like trying to control the whole thing. Probably you all know, right? The income tax, most of the governments which the income tax collected, the money spent on collecting is more rather than the money collected. But they wouldn't stop because they want to maintain the control. They want to ensure that I'm monitoring you, we know what you're doing, so we're going to collect the money from you. This is the only simple rationale behind the income tax. Otherwise, you buy this, you buy a pen, you buy a food, you buy a biscuits. That is the engine which keeps driving. We pay tax on everything. It's not the direct, it is the indirect tax, as you know, which keeps the engine running. So this probably has a lot of loopholes, which one area which fintech tries to address. When we bring in the blockchain, the origin of the products, where does it originate? Where does it end up? Maybe to ask you kind of a question. After the US ban on a lot of Chinese products, you will find that a lot of exports from China to India happened. Have you been noticing that? Suddenly the trade between India and China has picked up. Are we using so many Chinese products? Partly yes. But industry, are we using so much? We don't. So why do we do this? Bypass. Transfer from China to India, process, do some machining, do some changes, send it across to the US. So we are trying to bypass. Can we trace this? This could be an answer. The blockchain. Where does it originate? Where does it end up? Where does it finally move? And in the case of personal, of course, the biometric, we say it's enhanced security, we say it is convenience, but I have my own doubts on really like, is it secure? Can somebody take a photo of myself? Can they use it for the banking transactions? Yeah, these are questions which are debated. And the other positive is the, at least in the case of India, mobile penetration. Everyone has mobile. So why not change? Why not convert each mobile device into a banking device? So that is a positive. And the last one is the personalization. Let's say I'm going to apply for an insurance. I filled in my data. There's somebody with a similar profile. AI can compare what is my lifestyle and probably come out with a different quotation for me and a different quotation for the other person who has a different lifestyle. So these are some of the positives. And just to answer the last point, why do we keep on insisting on the financial inclusion is, end of the day we want to achieve the growth. So how do we achieve is the question. The simple one-line answer is channelization. We try to channelize, we try to bring it together. And by ensuring that there is access, we try to make sure that there is widespread growth, the economic growth. And moving back to the impact or the implications. One is democratization. What do we mean by democratization? Maybe again, to ask you a question. Why do you think countries like India, we don't allow crypto? Even equity crowdfunding is not permitted. Probably you know that, right? Why do we say crypto is not permitted in many countries? Why do governments prevent trading? It's illegal actually. Why do you think they should? One side we keep saying fintech, one side we keep saying democratization and everything. And then why should we stop crypto? Why should crypto be illegal? We say there is blockchain, we say there is traceability, but then why all this? Why crypto? Why are you not trading in crypto?
You don't know that who's collecting, who's selling,
Yes, ma'am.
and there is no IRD, no one is controlling it.
Exactly. That is a problem. Anonymity. To give you a crude comparison, it's like the Swiss vault. Money goes from some source, it goes into the country. Maybe that particular country, maybe that particular bank knows, but they are not going to share the data with others. And what if it is going to be used for illegal activities, especially in countries like India? Terrorism is a major issue. Money laundering is a major issue. So that is one side. Other side is, have you ever thought about inflation? Let me put it this way. Why do we value gold? Scarce. Scarcity of the product is the value. Yeah, we love gold, that's a different issue. Indians, we love gold, that's a different issue. But other than that, scarcity gives the value. Now imagine you go back home, you dig up one foot, and then you find gold at the backyard. Every one of you go back home, you dig up one foot, you can find gold. What happens to the value of the gold? Decrease. That is exactly the problem with the cryptos. Cryptos can be flooded into the market. We do not know who is floating it. We do not know who is going to use it. Where is the source and where is the application, we wouldn't know. That is one security concern, and at the other side is the inflation. Inflation, what do we mean by inflation? Too many products or too little products?
Have you based on dollars reserve kept in RBI?
Yeah. Generally we say like there's too much money supply. The products are the same. Just imagine your COVID time. How much did you pay for the sanitizer? How much did you pay for the face mask? I bought one mask for 10 minutes. Literally, because we have to safeguard ourselves. And you cannot go out of the country, you cannot go out of the house without wearing the mask. Malaysia is a small country, so like everyone can be monitored. Not like we say, I drink rasam, I don't get COVID. So not that kind of stories are not going to work there. So now, when the face mask was selling at 10 ringgit, did we stop buying? No, we needed, we went on with the purchases. So, the other side is, if, let me put it this way. There are some countries, which are very heavily indebted. They are borrowed from other countries. For example, Sri Lanka, nothing wrong in naming them. Pakistan, same wise, borrowed a lot. And why not print the currency and pay back? Government has the power, right? The central bank of the country has the power, right?
They don't have enough permission. They have to get it from WTO, and based on their dollars reserve only, they can print the currencies. Based on that only, they can print the currencies.
Partly, yes, but most of the countries, they have gone in for the fiat arrangement. The central bank is mandated to print the currency. So let's say if India wants to print 1 billion, they can. But why are we not printing? Money value is going to come down. You can keep saying that the price is going up, so I am giving you more money. But end of the day, it is going to only worsen the situation. Let's say Sri Lanka starts printing the money. What would happen from a supply and demand perspective? Too much of supply of the Sri Lankan rupees, right? Already the value is low. And if we're going to flood the market with too many Sri Lankan rupees, what will happen?
The demand will fall.
That is exactly the reason. Yes, there's too much of supply into the market. And is there enough intake? So this is going to affect the value of the currency. So going back to the democratization question, it is there. Democratization is there. But if we ask the question, it is literally democratized. Can you float a cryptocurrency? Let me put it this way. Can you go back home, do some programming, and float a crypto? Assuming that it is legal. Assume crypto is legal in India. Can you go back, let's say like 4 or 5 of you, float a crypto? Technically, yes. You can come out with your own currency. Somebody has to, somebody can buy this, and technically, yes. But to answer my original question, why crypto is not being allowed by most of the countries? One, we do not know the source and application. Security concerns are there. Are we funding buying of a bun, or are we funding buying of a gun? We wouldn't know that. Are we feeding the poor, or are we spending on terrorism? We wouldn't know that. The source and application is the issue. Other issue from an economic viewpoint is the inflation. Already we are facing the inflationary issues, and this is another one. But in spite of all this, there are factors like this, the transaction cost. Those days, you have got to drive to particular bank, sign off, printing of the check. All these are expensive. But again, here I have my own views. How much are we spending for the transaction? I really do not know. Are we saving money after the digitalization in case of India? I really do not know. The number of transactions, the number of times you draw the money and all these things, I have my own questions on. Are we really saving money? Transaction cost is reducing. But theoretically it should reduce. Theoretically, if you are sending the money, let's say 20 years back, you wanted to send money to your brother, maybe you wanted to send to your sister or somebody, it's going to take time. You post the check, they receive the check, it's going to take time. So the time, cost effectiveness, instantaneous, these are like quite positives in terms of fintech. And in the case of ASEAN, Singapore is a leader, probably it's a fintech hub. So what do we find here? One term, slightly maybe new for you, is the sandbox. What do we mean by sandboxes? Singapore, they have a regulatory sandbox concept. Let's say you have a new fintech idea. You need to innovate. The whole idea behind the fintech is innovation. You have to come out with new products. And can you unleash a new product on the customers who don't understand what they are dealing with? So that is an issue which Singapore tries to address with the sandbox concept. It is experimentation, but controlled by the government. Government knows what you are doing with the product, what are you doing with the customer's data. Government has a tight control on the whole thing. So with small countries like Singapore, it could work. But when we look at big countries like Indonesia, it's hard to say. Can it be so effective? It's hard to say. And in the case of Thailand, in the case of Myanmar and Cambodia, they are in a different league compared to what we see in the case of Singapore and Malaysia. In Malaysia, a couple of weeks back, one of my relatives was admitted in a government hospital, and we just went around. And you don't have to have the swiping machine, you don't have to pay the rent for that. The money is instantly transferred from my account to the other account. So all these are the positives in the case of fintech development. But at the same time, there were incidents in Malaysia where one customer, he printed his own QR, pasted on a shop. The shopkeeper didn't know. You can Google it, you can find out which shop and other things. I don't want to name those things. Eventually, end of the day, I go to Prof. Sudhil's shop. I think I'm paying to him. Prof. Sudhil thinks he's receiving the payment, but somebody else is receiving the payment. So these are all the drawbacks in the case of QR. So, of course, positives and negatives we are trying to discuss together. And in the case of Myanmar, I think we don't have to discuss much. Cambodia and Do you want to go to Myanmar? I don't want to. So I think we don't want to discuss much about Myanmar and Cambodia. They are more known for human trafficking, right? Not for fintech. And I think a lot of news related to especially Tamil and some of the Indian who went over there for working, they were kind of enslaved. That's the other funny part. Just to share one more personal experience. I received, I randomly keep scrolling through, that's one bad habit, in the case of internet. I came across crypto. My wife keeps blasting me all the time for only earning from the knowledge sources. Why not you find some other source of information? I have to beg, borrow, or steal. That is common. And one other idea which I was thinking, I'm teaching finance, so why not invest in crypto? That was like setting a foot on the ball. I registered my number, I gave my details, phone number, nothing much. The layout of the page, where they seek the payment for the investment, that rang a bell. The way the page was designed and the way they were seeking the payment. I was not planning to pay much, I was just planning to invest like 1,000 ringgits. But looking at the whole thing, it rang a bell. I stopped the payment. I thought the episode ended there. It is still continuing. It is still continuing. Every day I get a call from that person. And the worst part was that she immediately called, and the person on the other side, she immediately called and said, why you stopped the payment? I said, I'm not interested any longer, and then I said, I forgot the password. Can you imagine what she did? She gave the password on the phone. She gave me the password on the phone. She said, this is your password. Why not you log in and continue the payment? And I said, that's the last draw. I'm good. And one funny thing which I did now was I gave my wife's number. I didn't give my phone number. I gave my wife's phone number. Every day, she around 1:30, somebody will call her. Say why are you not investing in all those stories? And you should also know the power of Tamil, After 2 months, I answered that this is not subject, this is other side. I took the phone, I answered in Tamil. He was speaking in all sort of British and US and all sort of English, all sort of accent. You can see that it's an Asian who's speaking, but they have a funny accent, imagining that they're talking from the US and UK. I said, எனக்கு தமிழ் மட்டும்தான் தெரியும். வேற எந்த லாங்குவேஜும் எனக்கு தெரியாது. தமிழ்ல பேசினா பேசு இல்லைன்னா பேசாது. He kept on arguing in English. Can you speak in Malay? Can you speak in Chinese? That was the last day when we received the call. Tamil is so powerful. And after that, they did not disturb us. The fact is, the customer, when they don't understand, you cannot cheat them. The underlying story is that they come to a point to understand that you cannot change the customer further. These are again the drawbacks on the other side. And one idea which we are experimenting is the neobank. Are you familiar with the neobank ideas? Branchless, no physical form, KYCs, you take your Aadhaar, assuming that your face is on the Aadhaar. My face is not on my Aadhaar. I don't know whose face is on Aadhaar. So I try to identify myself on the Aadhaar. So, in case of fintech, the growth is tremendous. I'm not sure if you can really see the numbers. I try to zoom it up. Anyway, in terms of neobank, in terms of fintech, you can see that the growth potential is huge. Everyone has a phone. That is the only reason. Everyone has access to phone. The data is almost free. So these are drivers behind what is happening in the case of neobank. In the case of Singapore, these are popular apps, these are the investments, these are the popular numbers, like how much goes into the fintech investment. Maybe I'll share this in case you're interested. Probably if you want to take a look at it, you can get a copy from Prof. Sunil later.
Google is missing from there.
Sorry?
Singapore, Google is not.
No, these are the apps actually. Google is not there. Actually, in the case of Singapore, sir, the biggest one is DBS. DBS leads, and the second one is Grab. They are the leaders. And that is one of the advantages where the MNCs, they cannot really get into this. That is one way I look at it as the democratization. Unlike Visa and Master stealing the money all the time. So, it does not mean that Myanmar and Cambodia are not in the picture. Still, there are experiments which are happening. They are investing. The problem is this. I'm not sure if you can read this. 80% of the population, they are not banked. In the case of Myanmar. And in the case of Cambodia, 70% of the population, they are unbanked. Are you going to have like so many banks and branches all over the country? Safety is one thing. Investing is another thing, infrastructure. But why not convert, like in the case of Vietnam, tie up with the telecom, convert each phone into a mini bank where you do all the transactions, borrow, lend, P2P, G2B, government to people. All these, it's possible with the fintech. Another which I admitted my daughter in boarding school a bit far away in Malaysia. One of the funny things which I saw was like there was a very small shop with the idea of agent banking. What do we mean by agent banking? Before going on with my ranting, anyone familiar with this idea? What is agent banking? Can you go to, for example, can you go to Genesis and swipe your card and get the cash? What if we can do this? There is a shop, there is a vendor with a swiping or whatever mechanism. It is not banked and we need cash. Can we convert this as a part of the extended branch mechanism? So that is a crude way of explaining what we mean by agent banking. I'm not saying that's the right definition, but that's a crude way of explaining. Just like using your card and then trying to get the cash. Not buying the product, but getting the cash from the vendor. And in the case of P2P, especially in the case of Malaysia, I think you must have seen in the case of India as well. You find there is a small kid who needs a very expensive injection or who needs a very expensive medication. The first thing that we try to approach is the peer-to-peer borrowing or peer-to-peer, maybe philanthropic activities or whatever. This has been one major shake-up in the case of fintech. I'm sure you must have seen these news, right? Like one injection costing like 16 crores or 17 crore Indian rupees, and the money was collected in a few days. All this possible only because of fintech. That is one thing. And the other one is the digital microfinance, which is coming into the picture, which is the other example which I mentioned is the Vietnam mobile and the bank getting together to trying to solve the inclusion problem. So you don't imagine that I'm going to stop. Right? This is the first section. So to quickly recap, we are trying to understand like the accessible platforms, one thing. Partnership with telecom, that is a major thing in the case of fintech. And biometric in terms of convenience, yes, that's a game changer. And the last one, it tries to head in the direction of the fintech, financial exclusion. So I think we can stop here for a minute, and if any questions you can ask me before we proceed, or if you want me to stop here if you have any questions, I'm fine with it. Is that okay, sir? Already, like some people have already met their grandfathers and grandmothers. They are trying to come down from the heaven. Anyone met your grandmother, grandfather, like great grandfather when you were sleeping? Yeah? in my case, chemistry was the worst. Chemistry classes were the worst when I was in my schooling and collegiate days. When the teacher starts doing the best thing I can do was draw cartoons. So suddenly, like some teacher walks to my desk and checks my notebook, I think I'm dead. Because the cartoon would be the teacher. So I fully understand your pain. So any questions you can ask me. That's also something which we call as a PowerPoint coma. The PowerPoint is on and then the lecture starts and then you don't need drugs, you don't need alcohol. You can reach the seventh heaven. So maybe if you want me to ask, if you want to pose some questions, maybe general like Malaysia or fintech or anything, my father's name, my daughter's name, feel free to ask. Let's not try to kill each other. Are you okay? Woke up? Do you want to brush your teeth and come back? Okay, I'll try to make it short. Prof. Senthil warned me, don't go beyond 4:30, I'm going to kill you. We know each other, don't get me wrong. We know so many years.
Since 2006.
Since 2006. So we take the liberty to dig at each
The last
other.
17 years we know.
So we take the liberty to dig at each other. Do we want to do that with the directors? Do we want to take that digging to the directors?
No, we don't. Let us confine to ourselves.
Let's stop
It's safer.
with this level. Okay. So regulatory, I'll try to make it short. I'm not going to follow the slides. Maybe I'll share it with you later. In terms of regulation, we may think of ASEAN as a united region. Indonesia and Malaysia, we almost speak the same language. I don't speak. I couldn't learn. I'm already old, so I couldn't learn Malay. But Malay and Indonesian language, they are very, very closely related to each other. If you can speak Malay, you can understand Indonesian. If you can speak Indonesian, you can understand Malay. Closely related, except that Indonesian is a bit harsh, like Chennai Tamil. So, anyone from Chennai? Sorry, Chennai Tamil is the worst. So, Indonesian is a bit harsh. So it is not like that. So, likewise, they have certain countries which speak Malay. They have certain countries like Cambodia, they speak a different language. The evolutionary stage in terms of economics, social, completely different in the case of Singapore, completely different in the case of Malaysia, uncomparable in the case of Myanmar. So how do you come out with a common framework for all this? How can you come out with a common framework? It is like trying to come out with a common framework for Pakistan and India. Can we agree on anything? No. If I say left, you say right. So we wouldn't agree on anything. So that is one major drawback when it comes to the regulatory and policy framework. But one positive is Singapore and Malaysia, they have advanced economies. Otherwise, we are still dealing with the Telegraph Act. The best that many countries they have is the Telegraph Act. IT, Telegraph. They haven't evolved beyond that. And let's see if I can jump over. The objectives in the case of Philippines, it was to come out with a digital identity. And in the case of Indonesia, the idea was to increase the financial literacy. You can see how poles apart they are. One country trying to come out with a digital identity, and the other country says, I want to increase the financial literacy. So how do we come out with a common framework for these kind of fintech startups? So these could be the challenges in the case of regulatory environments. And not only this, Indonesia, thousands of islands. Some of the islands, I don't think people would have ventured. Only the natives are there. It's hard to even reach there. So these are some of the ideas. And other one, anyone wants to explain this? Last one. Anyone wants to explain this? I will explain in one word. Thermocol. You have that kind of people who are leading the government, and how do you teach them what is fintech? How do you teach them what are the regulations that are required? You all know what is thermocol, right? So how do you tell them like what is fintech, and how do you tell them that we need a common framework? This is what I mean by the legislative capacity. There are people there, but they don't know what they are dealing with. And how do we make it together? Harmonization. It's easier said, trying to bring in harmony. It's like saying like Karnataka, please give us water. We can say we are living in the same union of India. So we are in the same country. So Karnataka should give water to us. So this is like harmonization. Theoretically it works, but practically it's hard. When it comes to practical, it's already like ramped up. Nobody can really solve it. Maybe for the next 2 generations, nobody can solve this Kaveri water issue. Likewise, in this case, what are the different requirements for Singapore? What are the requirements for countries like Myanmar? It's not the same. So, how do you come out with the uniform framework for all these? And yeah, I think these are a bit technical. I'm going to jump over these slides. So to quickly recap, one could be the sandbox. Don't throw a product at the customer. Test it. Let the government know what are you dealing with, and then release it to the market. That's the idea behind the sandbox. And harmonization we try, and MRIs again we try, but it's like Kaveri coming from Canada. We don't know. Theoretically it works. So how do we measure that? Financial inclusion. Whenever you are trying to talk about something, when the parents pay the fees to you, what do they say? Have you got the degree? No, they want to know like how many marks you got in the internal, how many marks you got in the external, like what is your grade. They're going to keep track on what you're doing, right? If you don't reach there, there's no pocket money. Does it work that way? Not for JSB students, right? So, we want to know what we are dealing with. How many people have we reached? How many transactions have happened? How many people have really benefited out of it? By benefit, what do we mean? Have they come out of poverty? Have they been banked? Has their lifestyle improved? What do we mean by lifestyle improvement? Are they spending on cinemas? No. Are they spending on self-improvement? Yes. That is what we mean by development. So I have money, I eat, I stay in it. So each of the, even though we call this as the ASEAN, each of the countries, they have different outlooks. They have different ideas. From my school days, you open the Tirakani newspaper, you open the Vinamala newspaper, Brunei Sultan, the richest in the world. Now they are all like taken the back seat with people like Bezos. But you cannot bring in a country like Brunei into this. What I am trying to convey is there is one of the richest countries with a per capita income, like Brunei, which is a part of the ASEAN, which has a different outlook. You're not going to preach them like it's for financial inclusion, because already like they are rich in terms of financial goals. So each one, they have a different outlook, each one has a different idea. So this one I guess I already, some compatibility issues. Oh, okay. So harmony we try to reach, let me jump on to the recap point. So mobile, a lot of improvement we are seeing on that. In the case of identity, since we are moving to a neobank society, digital identity becomes like very important. You do not still want to paste your 2x2 photograph on something and then get it signed from category A officer. So these are the kind of things which we want to do away with, which can be done with the digital identity. And yes, this is a repetition. Sandbox is a repetition. You keep saying that again and again. That is the basis for innovation. So when you come to the last part, like practically I guess I'm sticking on to my time. You can see so it's staring at me. Sorry. And I can see like some of you staring at me as well. It's already like time for bus and when I'm going to stop. So we have a kind of relaxed. I'm not sure if I'm going to corrupt the students. In the case of Malaysia, we have a very relaxed classroom structure. You'll find people sitting in the front desk and eating chips. I'll be shouting at the top of my voice. And like, which movie is that? Lagu Tata. Lagu Tata. The old, the old Bagaraj movie. The grandmother trying to feed the laddu and the Hindi teacher trying to teach Hindi. That is a kind of arrangement you'll see in the classroom. Like, I'll lecturer doing something and the students like eating chewing gum and like taking chips. Luckily, so far I haven't seen anyone taking breakfast in the classroom. But biscuits, cool drinks, they are okay. But the policies we don't know. But policy implementation is different and policy is different. So implementation is different. These days we call it a lecture theatre. So what's wrong? Time to sleep, time to take snacks. So that's all right. So why do we need financial inclusion? That is the last part of the question which I am trying to answer. The last part is, one of the studies that shows that it leads to stability. It leads to financial stability. Financial inclusion leads to financial stability. How can that be? Why not like certain people remain rich and why not certain people remain poor? What's wrong in that? That is exactly what we are trying to answer with the financial inclusion. We are trying to bring everyone under the umbrella, cover, some sort of basic service, which otherwise is going to lead to French Revolution. All of you saw the Olympics, right? The head going, which was quite repulsive, but that is the truth. If we don't control this sort of disparity between the rich and the poor, which FinTech is in a way trying to address, it's going to lead to chaos. So other like textbook answers could lead to competitive interest, it could lead to transaction speed and all these overall customer satisfaction. I don't really believe that, because so far all my experience related to FinTech and like internet banking has been very pathetic, both in Malaysia, both in India. Wherever I try to deal with this sort of FinTech, at least you can go to the bank and shout at the manager. If the transaction doesn't go, I signed the check but you didn't pass the check. At least you can go and shout and come back. But in this case, you try to shout at the customer care executive. He doesn't even understand what you're doing. So that's the kind of issue when it comes to FinTech, like too much of system into place. And companies are hiding behind the systems. Sorry to use a strong language. I think the companies and the banks, they are trying to hide behind the system. They don't want the human interaction, they don't want the interaction with the customers. AI is taking over. Even if you pose a question, I don't think you are speaking to a human any longer. Most likely you are talking to a bot, which probably doesn't understand what you're saying, and then it takes ages. By the time we already lost track, like what are we trying to deal with. But one advantage which I find is this. Other than this, I don't find anything else. Saturday off, Vijayadashami off, 4 days off, 5 days off. Only the other, I mean, this is the only thing which I find as an advantage, 24/7, the banking. So allocation, yes. Innovation, job creation, yes. No doubt about these things. Small time entrepreneurs, like a tailor, like a bakery. You can sell off and demand the payment. You don't have to wait for 1 week for the payment. The check is deposited, the check bounces, and then you run behind somebody to get the check passed. So these are kind of advantages when it comes to the digital banking. So naturally it should lead to economic growth. But what it leads to is 5,000 crore wedding. I'm not sure whether it leads to economic widespread growth, but it leads to 5,000 crore. It's on the newspaper. Everyone knows India. Everyone knows what we are doing and what we are not doing as well. So both are in the public now. So some example, as I mentioned, retail, yes. The time, agriculture, yes. The farmer, they do have advantages. I think in case of India, this is very, very prevalent as compared to other countries. The farmers getting advantage over the technical aspects, at least for switching on the pump. Not much. You can switch on and switch off the pump too. At least to that extent, it works. And of course, the development is not even, which is the first question I asked. The digital divide, does it lead to digital divide? Yes. Personally, I feel yes, it leads to digital divide. There are people who can read and there are people who cannot read. Likewise, there are people who know what is fintech and there are people who do not know what is fintech. So, in the name of including everyone, I'm not sure if we are excluding a section of the society. That might be an accident, which was not intentional, but that accident is happening. We are leaving out a part of the society from the development. And of course, the rural areas still, in terms of infra, in terms of awareness, not much. It's not the India which we know. You should travel across the country at least. You should take a road trip. You should visit the villages to understand like what kind of life. I'm not trying to put down. It's the same in Malaysia as well. You might look at Kuala Lumpur Twin Towers and think like Malaysia is shining. No. You have to travel to Sabah and Sarawak to see what is real Malaysia. There are villages without a road. At least here you have the roads. So I'm not really sure if this is going to change because of fintech. But are we providing the banking services to the people who do not have access? Yes. At least to that extent we have been able to do that. So theoretically, yes, reduce cost, lesser visits, no traffic jams, especially if you're driving in Kuala Lumpur, you don't want to drive. You will start hating driving if you're driving in Kuala Lumpur. And access, enhanced growth, all these are the broad ideas. So, okay, I guess I skip this. Maybe I can just put it in one word, harmony. But it's hard to achieve because each one has a different idea. Singapore and Myanmar, you cannot put it on the same page. So one would be the common standards, identity. So if I have identity verified in Malaysia, I don't have to prove myself again in Singapore. So that is one advantage. And data protection, Europe, I think you all know, very, very strict about data protection. So probably we should have some ideas about this. But as I was speaking, I cannot but remember what happened with Microsoft a few weeks back. We could not even access our own accounts. I could not access my own account. I could not open my account. So these are the challenges when it comes to fintech. Maybe I'll have to just take you back to one slide later. Maybe I'll do that later. The point that I'm trying to highlight is this cyber security part. It's still risky. So one of the shining example has been India's UPI, Kenya's M-Pesa. All these have been with all the criticisms. You can say like whatever, I can keep criticizing. But with all this, we have achieved something. We have done something in terms of UPI, in terms of enabling environment. We are doing things. So interoperable systems and ASEAN QR. So these could be like futures. What could be done in the future? Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, sandbox is going to keep coming again and again. Innovation cannot be experimented if you don't have a sandbox. So the last slide which I mentioned was this. Don't think I'm going to run through this whole slide again. Don't start throwing anything at me. I just wanted to show you what is the general regulatory structure? You see, so many bodies are involved. The central bank, tech, the corporate affairs, the IT, insurance, securities. So it's a bit hard to bring everyone on the same page. Even in one country, forget about different countries. Even in one country, it's a bit hard to bring everyone on the same page. Always. So I guess I'm done. Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Here comes Ms. Kartika to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of Jansen School of Business, I extend my heartfelt gratitude for your active participation in this academic conference. A special thanks to our resource person, Dr. T. Senthil Kumar, for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today. Thank you, sir. I would like to extend my gratitude to our esteemed director, Dr. H.G.V. Narayanan, for giving us this opportunity. A special thanks to our faculties and my dear friends for making this event a great success. Thank you all.